Welcome back, everyone. I'm Nala.
And I'm Faith.
And this is the Sirens Den's breakdown, theories, and things you may have overlooked for episode 1 of Wandavision.
So this is your official spoiler warning, but why are you watching a recap or listening to a recap podcast if you haven't watched it? Come on, guys.
This is pretty on brand for us.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to unpack, so let's just dive right in.
All right, so we start off with actually a sitcom opening. So one of the things about this show is each episode is going to be vaguely reminiscent of a sitcom of days past. This time, to start us off, we started off with an opening reminiscent of the Dick Van Dyke Show. So we got this cute black and white opening of Wanda and Vision being adorable newlyweds, and it sets up the premise that she has telekinetic abilities and he's a robot and they're newlyweds. It's a sitcom. And yeah, from there, it starts off with a really sitcom-y premise. There's a heart on the calendar. Neither Wanda nor Vision know what this heart represents, and they both try to play it like they do know whatever anniversary this is. They go their separate ways, Vision to his job, and Wanda to being a 50s housewife.
I mean, just to start it off, I liked how it went into the 4:3 aspect ratio. Like an old-timey TV set, it really helped solidify that this isn't really like reality right now, because we're not used to seeing shows on this format, especially on flat screens. So I think they did a really great job right off the bat getting you immersed into that world. And even though obviously there's a lot of pitfalls, a lot of questions, there's a lot of time that has passed from when Wanda and Vision were last together, there is like a lot to think about and consider. But we don't really like spend too much time in that, because this is basically a reality that Wanda shapes, and it's really awesome to kind of have those seeds planted of, yeah, this date, it's important, but why? We're literally characters that only exist episode to episode. We don't have actual backstories.
Yeah, one thing I think you're right that they did really good in this is that they did a really good blend of just dissecting the 50s sitcom and dissecting the sitcom and examining those tropes and really playing with those tropes while also setting up the idea that something very not right is going on here. Really in subtle ways getting this nice kind of tone of unease going on, and also at the same time the jokes were genuinely funny. They really understood not only just like how to start incorporating the mystery, but they also understood sitcom format. They understood the rules of sitcom and what makes a good sitcom and what makes a good sitcom episode. So just seeing that kind of blend of sitcom and Marvel was really, really interesting.
And it was also kind of heartbreaking, because the chemistry that Vision and Wanda have is so great and so palpable. And you just have to sit back and remember that their story is actually a tragedy. And even though there's this laugh track happening right now, you can tell how much Wanda loved Vision, because all this is essentially for him.
Yeah. So we kind of cover in our other show, Simon's Den, how we're pretty sure that this is House of M. I'm pretty sold that, yeah, this is absolutely just a House of M series, and this is the way that they're choosing to explore that. But just knowing that this is kind of Wanda's vision for her and Vision is just this really perfect domestic happy family. It's literally the kind of American dream, the settle down and live your life with a loved one, and that's just so tragic.
And it makes sense as to why she would project this reality so strongly, probably because that's where she grew up in a foreign country, and they usually play these kind of shows on repeat all the time. And so that's kind of her idea that she grew up with, and kind of like her comfort place. Like, this is where she's the most comfortable, is remembering these kind of shows. Miscommunication type episode, which are always fun.
So Wanda and Vision go their separate ways. Wanda to being a housewife, Vision to his job. And this is where we start to meet some of the other characters that we're going to get to explore in this universe. In the case of Wanda, we are introduced to Agnes, played by the always amazing Catherine Hahn. Just is kind of or apparently the nosy, gossipy neighbor who just kind of comes along and adds a bit of spice and excitement to Wanda's life. She brings over a magazine on like how to like really seduce your husband because Wanda knows that they have an anniversary that night, although she doesn't know what it was, and she really wants to impress Vision. Meanwhile, Vision is at his job where it's a lot of good back and forth between him and his coworkers, but then we're introduced to his boss, Mr. Hart. We know that we learned that Mr. Hart has a dinner at Vision's place that night. That's why there's a heart on the calendar. And Vision quickly calls Wanda to make sure that she knows that that's what that heart means. They think they understand each other. They don't. And just more sitcom shenanigans.
I've always loved that trope of like, hey, you know what would fix this? Literally just going like, hey, let's one more time. Let's just say what we're both thinking. Let's just make sure we're on the same page. And that never happens.
Yeah.
I'm just like, literally, if you're this frazzled about it, just double and triple and quadruple check that y'all are talking about the same thing. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's something that hasn't really been shown in media as much anymore, specifically since you can communicate a lot more easily. But it's always fun to revisit those classic comedy of errors type of storylines.
Yeah. And I think what's particularly was interesting because those both of those scenes with Wanda and Agnes and Vision and Mr. Hart was both of them were genuinely really funny. They were very cleverly written. The dialogue was awesome. Both scenes had this great back and forth and flow. But also we get to meet Mr. Hart and more importantly Agnes, who probably we're pretty sure is not all that she seems. There's a lot of theories on
Definitely not.
who she could be.
So I also loved this sequence. It kind of made me wish that this was a whole show, like this format, this I Love Lucy style, black and white. I was like, I want to see more episodes, but I realized that's not the point of this show. But I loved seeing Vision start to break down in and have an existential crisis. I'm excited for more of that. It's like very meta,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see that he's starting to question the world he's in because it's just so uncanny valley, and there's just something not too right about that. But Agnes seems to be the only person who like gives in to the illusion, where
Yeah.
everyone else is like trying to shut it down and be like, "Oh, yeah, this is what we do. Like, why are you questioning this, bro?" Agnes is the one who's like, "Oh, yeah, this is my life. This is my character and this is what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that, she knows more about this universe.
Yeah. Which again, Catherine Hahn as his character is so perfect. It's everything I want out of Catherine Hahn being in anything. In terms of again, there's a lot of theories on who she might be. In this episode and the next one, she's definitely one of the characters who seems a little bit clued into what's going on. There's a lot of kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge with the audience coming from her. So the main person people think she is, which I think I agree with. I would not be surprised if they went that route. And or mad even is Agatha Harkness. She was one of the original witches. She was a witch at the Salem witch trials. In the comics, she is kind of a mentor, anti-hero, antagonist character to Wanda, which is kind of the role that she's filling here. So that would make sense. The other person I think she might be, it's a little bit of a long shot, but hear me out. This is also just it's a little bit of wish fulfillment. I think she might be Mephisto. Mephisto being kind of the devil character of the Marvel universe. And it's kind of the way that she is so wink, wink, nudge, nudge with the audience. And also, I think that would just be a really interesting route to go with that character. I think that would just it would be really fun, and I think that would be a really cool way, because we already kind of got the sinister, dark, evil man from Thanos. I think really giving us a villain that's opposite of that would be really great, especially to kick off this phase of the Marvel universe.
And that's actually interesting because I was, looking at the trailers and being like, who is the antagonist? Is there a sole antagonist, or is the situation the antagonist? And watching Catherine Hahn's character, I was like, I I feel a little suspicious about her because she's too nice and she's a little too helpful and she's a little like too invested in Wanda's life specifically, that I think I was wondering if she would be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you bring up that point and I was like, but if she's the villain, like how is she so invested in their lives? And then, reading more on Agatha Harkness's character, and yeah, Agnes is basically just smushing those two names together. It's very not subtle. Also in the trailer there is the Halloween episode, I believe, where Vision sees her in her car and like goes to her and she's kind of like zoned out, but she is wearing a witch costume.
Mm-hmm.
As to So that's why I'm like, definitely I think she's for sure Agatha Harkness. But while she might not be working for Mephisto, I could definitely see her also being Mephisto. I think they might just like combine both those characters
Yeah.
because
And the
that
other
would be
thing,
interesting.
yeah. Uh I agree 100%, because the other thing that this show has been setting up really well for the past two episodes is it's nothing is added as it appears, nothing is straightforward. Um, her being Agnes or Agatha is kind of the straightforward theory. It's kind of the straightforward, this is obviously who that person is. What a right turn that would be if it was actually, no, she's Mephisto. I think I wouldn't put it past them to pull something like that.
Or you know what? Maybe in that same breath, I mean, we can talk more about this when we talk about other episodes. She does bring up children a lot.
Mhm.
And obviously is alluding to Wanda's kids, Wiccan and Speed, that we are eventually going to see later on.
All right. So nighttime comes. Vision, Mr. Hart, and Mrs. Hart, who is played by Deborah Jo Rupp, who you guys might recognize as Kitty from that 70s show. I'm so happy she's in this.
Love
But
her.
anyway, they get to the house where Wanda has set up a very seductive scene. Smooth jazz is playing. She comes in, mistakes Mr. Hart for Vision, puts her hands over his eyes, and it's just again kind of going in that comedy of errors. Quickly realizes the mistake. Vision is able to get the situation explained to her. So now it's on Wanda to make a home cooked meal like as soon as possible, or Vision is going to lose his job. Agnes comes to bring her food to cook.
Who of all people, of course it's Agnes. Like she's gonna be the one that's in the know of what's happening. And that whole thing, I was like, yeah, she obviously knows that Scarlet Witch can make some magic happen.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about this being done in a snap and all
Yeah.
these things.
Again, kind of that wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But something else I found here was that she was also like kind of comedically causing problems. She was making a ruckus. She wasn't leaving immediately. Wanda's trying to get her out of the house, so like she makes a good impression on her husband, and just the way she kind of was messing with Wanda here. Like that's what she was doing there. She was being helpful, but it kind of leads into Wanda trying and failing to make dinner, while Vision was trying and failing to impress his boss and his boss's wife.
I just want to point out one of my favorite things about this episode is how they used practical effects to
Mm-hmm.
make all of the stuff flow. And it was really, I was like, they did a great job in suspending your disbelief and taking you back to the times of really cheesy uh, wire hanging cups and napkins.
finally to end, Wanda gets dinner set up.
Breakfast for
It's
dinner.
breakfast for dinner.
So the breakfast for dinner is actually what she was hoping to make in the morning for actual breakfast. But she points out that, Vision points out that he doesn't eat, and she points out that that's why the fridge is empty, which is also funny because it wouldn't have been empty if they were, actual people living actual lives, but this is a pocket reality that is like just exists for this one episode and then is done.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. That's a really good detail. But yeah, they get their breakfast for dinner. And then Mr. Hart and Mrs. Hart start asking them questions about their lives, like how long they've been married and where they come from and what happened to them until they got here. And that's when things start to kind of get serious. It
Uh-huh.
goes from this jovial sitcom tone to even like the cinematography changes to a lot more kind of Hitchcock and
Definitely
very
Hitchcock.
suspenseful. Camera pushes. Um, Mr. Hart chokes on food. He collapses to the ground, and that's kind of where we get our first glimpse at it is Wanda who is in control of this reality. She eventually commands Vision to save him, which he does, and then everything goes back to normal like nothing ever happened.
That part was eerie. I think before we get to that, I want to point out the obvious Easter egg that everyone seems to have known, which is the wine bottle that
Mhm.
is in French, and it basically translates to House of M. And I thought that was a very cool little joke that they said, or
Yeah.
that not a cool little Easter egg that they put in to kind of be like, yeah, for eagle-eyed fans, this is definitely what we're doing.
Mhm.
But that scene in particular was very Hitchcock, very Twilight Zone. And you realize that it wasn't an accident. Usually, when those things happen, it's because of some cause, and that causes, Wanda creates this reality, but kind of like this reminds me almost of in The Good Place when
Yeah.
Janet creates the town and the people in the town, and it takes a lot to create people, and then when they start evolving into more than one-dimensional characters and they start questioning their surroundings, Wanda's like, I'm going to put a stop to that, and made him choke on a full strawberry. Like it wasn't eaten, it was just a full strawberry lodged in his throat with the intention to kill him, because if you remember, Scarlet Witch, she started out as the villain in Age of
Yeah.
Ultron. She was a predator, she was a killer, and it was interesting seeing that flash of her personality come back. And then uh Kitty, I know that's not her name, but
It's
her
cute.
little like glitch was really spooky, cuz it was almost like she was starting to realize what was happening, but she couldn't do anything about it.
Mhm.
And you could see that even though she was like, stop it," she was like crying inside because she was like, my
Yeah.
husband is dying right now and I can't
Uh,
do anything. So it was a really jarring shift, but it definitely made an impact.
yeah. And that's actually kind of brings me to it's another thing that I'm wondering is with moments like that where they're kind of pleading with Wanda, I don't think that the people in this reality are people of Wanda's creation. I think that these are people who are also trapped in here with her, who she has total control over.
Oh, I got it. Oh, okay.
With the way that she was saying stop it to Wanda, I think that that means that she was talking to Wanda to stop this reality. I think that the people in here are just as much trapped as Wanda and Vision, and I think it's Wanda that's
That is
keeping them there.
that's a totally interesting point that really blew over my head, because I thought that it was like a glitch moment and that Wanda was kind of glitching out in this reality that she created. But if they're actually people that Wanda has somehow been able to control and wipe their memories and whatnot, but they still have that underlying personality, it's kind of like, Get Out, like they're in the sunken
Mhm.
place.
I really think that these are people who are trapped in that reality. I think that's going to be the dark reveal coming up.
No, I definitely agree. I think these are people that she's controlled and not something she's created. But for now, yeah, she tells Wanda to stop it, and then Wanda kind of snaps back to her alternate reality and tells Vision, she kind of drops the pleasant American accent and like gets serious and tells him to save Mr. Hart. Um which I guess is why I'm thinking that why I was thinking that she created these people, because I believe she created Vision. I think Vision is solely connected to her and she does control him in some way, but he is starting to, like I said, grow a conscience and start to question where he comes from, because he didn't do anything until she told him to do something. And the reason is because I think she controlled him into not doing anything because she can control him, which has been
Yeah.
shown in the past. She does have a connection with the Infinity Stones, and you can see that more in how she uses it, like when she tries to cook the chicken and then undercooks it and then overcooks it. Like, she does mess with time, she messes with people's minds, obviously she messes with reality. And the Vision that we see is not like the usual Vision, and you can see that side of him try to break out, and that's when he's questioning his reality. But other than that, he seems like who Wanda wanted Vision to be. But you start to realize that they really don't know that much about each other because they didn't spend that much time together.
Mm-hmm. One last thing to cover is another thing that these are doing. They had the 50s commercials, the 50s commercial break. And in this one, it was a commercial for the Stark Industries Toastermate 2000 toaster oven.
I like that. I didn't notice that was our first indication of color. It was so subtle and so easy to kind of push away, but you're like, wait, that light is flashing. It's Stark Industries. It looks
Mm-hmm.
like a face. Like, I'm pretty sure this commercial means something else.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see how these kind of keep connecting. But yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning. But finally, we get our ending we get the sitcom credits, and it kind of fades into color, and we see that people are watching this on a TV.
And we get sword logos, which is really awesome because obviously there's shield and now there's sword. It's like we're in a Pokemon game. So we got the sword logo. That's obviously the facility that is monitoring her. And in the comic books, it stood for Sentient World Observation and Response Department, which is essentially like the space version of SHIELD, dealing with other worlds. But here in the MCU, they have changed it to Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Division. So that's quite a change. Wanda's already been explained in Age of Ultron as a weapon. They've already talked about how dangerous she is, which is why it was important to bring her to the light side and make her a hero. But we can tell what she can do with, the actions in Civil War. We know what she's like when she gets mad. And right now she's very much on the verge of, just losing her mind at losing everything. And that's potentially very dangerous. So that, making it sentient weapon observation is basically keeping the world safe from her versus the world safe from other worlds.
Because Scarlet Witch is absolutely one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe, and I think she's definitely the most powerful character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see why they are monitoring her and what specifically the situation is.
Well, you'll have to know if you tune in next episode as we continue our journey through this wonderfully trippy new miniseries.
So if you have any theories, tell us what you thought of the season premiere in the comments or send us an email at sirensdenpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Ty, our producer, and to Sean Thomas at thefuzzstudio.com for our theme song.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.